in a lot of sense, it's also common sense. The trouble is that buying houses quite often for people is very emotional.
Yep.
So you really take the emotion out of it by applying data to it to make the right decisions.
Yep.
So another question I have, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners would love to know about, take us through some of the different types of value add that you should be looking for in property. And I know they're going to vary depending on commercial and residential. So what are some of the value adds that you should be looking for?
There's less than you might think. And it's going to depend on your goals, right? So if your goal is, right, I'm just starting out, and maybe you've even got two or four properties, but if you don't have a lot of capital, you'll be in the first phase, the foundation phase. Foundation phase, the amount of capital you need to be in that phase, so it's getting started, is 50,000 to 200,000. So if you're in that kind of like, all right, I've got 50 grand, 100 grand, 150 grand to spend, you're probably going to be in the foundation phase. Now, I'll get to how we'll dig into that a little bit more. The fastest way you can go, if you want to go fast and get as many properties as possible in the shortest amount of time, the key value add you need to be looking for is under market value. The problem with buying under market value is it's tricky, right? All of this is all tricky. So it's not like you can just go, yeah, great, I want one of those, let's go get one. It's like you've got to understand how to analyze the market comprehensively enough to be able to actually work out, are you buying, what are you actually buying at the moment? So that's one value add, is under market value. Another value add, which would be in the foundation phase, would be a cosmetic renovation. Now, a cosmetic renovation is very different to a structural renovation. A lot of people think renovate and they think, it's going to be like the block and we're going to be putting in staircases and, we're going to add rooms and we're going to do all of this kind of stuff. No, we don't want to do anything like that. Cosmetic renovation is really simple. Carpet, paint, fixtures, fittings. That's it. Cosmetic renovations can be really good because they're the lowest capital input, highest perceived value. So you can get the average dollar return that you want to get for the money you spend is typically going to be between 1.5 and 3.5. Okay, so for every dollar you spend, you get $1.50 to $3.50 back. That's the goal. You got to make sure that stacks up. Now, the benefit of doing cosmetic renovations is we often don't consider like a full kitchen refit. It's more carpet, paint, fixtures, fittings. It's typically only going to cost you between $10,000 to $15,000. So the capital outlay is quite low, and it can really increase your yield and increase your capital as well, depending on the location. Okay, so it's going to depend on the market. So there's the first two, is under market value cosmetic renovation. The next steps, which is where we'd be looking at stuff that's more in the acceleration phase. And again, you can get a foundational property that has acceleration potential, would be stuff like subdivision or granny flat potential. Okay, they're kind of the two key characteristics in that phase. Now, the reason that they're the two key characteristics in that phase is by the time you get a couple of properties under your belt, you've now, say, got $200,000 of available equity. Your properties have grown. So you've now got this lump of cash and you're going, okay, what's next? You can start to do more complex projects. You're going to need to look at your portfolio and say, well, where am I going to get stuck next? Am I going to hit my serviceability limit, or am I going to run out of capital? So that way you can decide, okay, well, which lever do I need to pull? Do I need to focus more on cash flow, or do I need to focus more on capital? Or do I want to do some kind of mix of the both? Now, that allows you to then decide what types of projects you want to do. Now, you might buy in the foundation phase a property that is yielding at, say, 6% and in a good growth area, and has the ability to be subdivided at a later date. The difference being you're not going to go back to do that for probably a few years, maybe 5 or even 10 years. Once you've built up enough, financial and emotional fortitude. So far we've covered under market value, cosmetic renovation, subdivision, granny flat potential. And then the final one is more for the legacy phase. And that's where we start thinking about things like rooming house developments, or, these kind of like more complex, more capital intensive projects, which ultimately deliver a really high amount of cash flow, but require a lot of capital to be tied up. So,
yeah, that's very interesting. The value add, certainly something I've done in the past, just going in and